So sleep training, right? It is a sensitive topic in the world of the scary internet, but in our individual households, it can be really challenging to have conversations with your spouse about sleep training. And I'm here to talk about what to do if your partner does not agree with sleep training, but your family decides to move through the process of sleep training your baby, toddler, or preschooler, and how you can work through it together. Hi everyone, for those of you who are new here, my name is Sarah Bazio, and as the owner and lead pediatric sleep expert at Your Zen Baby Sleep, I work with exhausted parents of children ages 0 to 8 years old. I create flexible schedules, establish peaceful bedtimes, and teach their children to sleep through the entire night so that the entire family can get the peaceful rest that they need and deserve. We are going to talk about how to get both parents on board so that both parents and all the kids can be sleeping in a very short amount of time, 2 to 3 weeks, because that's about all it takes to sleep train your children. Why do parents, spouses, partners disagree on sleep training their children? There are many reasons that I come across in my practice when I am working with families one-on-one, and sometimes it really comes down to parenting philosophy. So this is something that I think all families are going to encounter many times throughout raising their children. We have to remember that as two parents, we were raised in two separate households, right? And we had two separate sets of ideals that maybe are similar, but we are now coming together and having to blend those ideals to raise a human being together. When this happens, we are making decisions together about our child rearing. Sleep training is a really big decision. It is more than just teaching your child independent sleep habits. It is a decision about how we manage behavior. And it is a decision about how we prioritize sleep, even coming from different cultures. You know, if you have families who are from two different cultures, some cultures value co-sleeping. Some cultures value crib sleeping. If you have families from two different cultures, who is going to win that battle, right? Who is going to be the person who co-sleeps with the child, or who is going to be the person who teaches them to sleep in the crib? All of these are conversations that some of the time don't happen before you have a child. You don't even think to have them before you have the child until they're right in front of you. So I find that this is really the surface level reason why parents are having these disagreements. The biggest reason why parents disagree with the process of sleep training is because there is going to be crying involved. I always say this to every family, even the book, The No Cry Sleep Solution. You can open it up to the first or second page, and the disclaimer says, in not quoting directly, basically, there is going to be crying when you sleep train. So, whereas their method is going to reduce the amount of crying, there's going to be some level of crying. And every parent is aware of this. When parents disagree, sometimes it's because they disagree on the level of crying, or they're uncomfortable with crying, or they don't want their children to endure crying. And they don't have a common ground with the amount of crying or the discipline that their child will have to go through as a result of the sleep training. And they're not on the same page. The third reason why parents may disagree on sleep training is because one parent might be taking the bulk of the load of the sleep deprivations. And a lot of the times it's mom. I don't want to peg mom for this though, because it can be dads. Oftentimes moms are up very frequently all night long, and they are taking on the bulk of the sleep deprivation, and dad can be very unaware of how it is impacting them, or even the effects of sleep deprivation on mom's body, especially after mom has carried the baby for 9 months, especially if this is a second or a third child and we have been dealing with years of sleep deprivation. So there can be a lot of disagreement about the necessity of sleep training, because dad doesn't understand the physical, emotional, and mental impact of the sleep deprivation, since he might not be actually experiencing it himself in his own body. And finally, just the lack of sleep knowledge. Everybody has a different style of parenting and level of interest in researching, education and receiving education about the individual topics about their children, right? And there's lots of information about sleep and its positive impacts on children and their growth and development. And a lot of times I will hear, one spouse say, I've done a lot of research and sleep is so essential to their growth and development. And the other spouse will say, yeah, I don't really see the value, or I haven't done the research. And that disconnect can really be the wedge in between somebody getting on board with the sleep training. How do we get onto the same page? I think the best place to start is in a neutral setting, on neutral grounds, away from the home, and when we aren't with our children together. So it can be really helpful if you have the availability and the funds to go seek out a therapist, or even just somebody who can be a really great mediator who doesn't have any bias towards one or the other of you, so that you can be able to give both of your sides and have somebody reflect back to you how you are feeling on either one of your sides, and this does not turn into an argument. Right? Being somewhere neutral that isn't in the home and you don't have your kids distracting you really can make this a more productive conversation. And you can really discuss how each of you are feeling, because both of your feelings are valid, both of your feelings are legitimate, and you need to be able to compromise. Neither one of you are right or wrong, and you have to find a way to be able to feel good about your decision to move forward with the sleep training if that's ultimately what you decide to do, or you have to feel good about a way to manage the sleep as it is if that's ultimately what you decide to move forward with as a family. Bring resources and reliable resources, right? So I want you to look up research on sleep training. Bring YouTube videos from sleep experts like myself to understand what it would take. Maybe research actual sleep consultants so that you have a professional to walk you through the process of sleep training. Bring scientific journal articles on crying so that you understand exactly what the long-term and short-term effects of crying are, which there are none. Just so that if there is sensitivity to crying, that we understand what, the implications of it are, so that we can ease concerns, right? When we have the facts and when we have the knowledge, it is much easier to be able to see that in front of us. And then what we can do is really support and hold the emotions, because we are addressing the emotions with factual evidence. I'm just going to assume that as a family, you have gone through the process of sitting down together, and even though one of you may have been a little more uncomfortable with sleep training, you have decided together that this is the route you are going to take. The number one thing I want you to keep in mind is that it is essential that you come up with a plan. So whether you work with an expert or not, you have to have a plan and you have to stick to it. Both of you. Both of you have to be 100% consistent, and there has to be awareness that the person who may not be as gung-ho about the sleep training has to be aware that they cannot sabotage the process by not being consistent, right? Sometimes this is what I see, that there may be a little self-sabotage because they weren't as interested in sleep training and there might not be as on board with it. So I want there to be self-awareness. I want you to set a limit too. The compromise might be, I'm not loving the idea of sleep training. I will pick a method that I feel comfortable with. I will follow a plan. We will be consistent. We will support each other throughout the process, or we'll hire a professional to support us. And I promise to try it for 3 weeks. And if it doesn't work, then we go back to the way it was before. And this way, at least you have a goal set in mind. And then by the end of 3 weeks, which I can promise you, by the end of 3 weeks, if you're doing it correctly, your problem will be solved. But if it's not, then what you know is that you can always say, all right, I've tried it, and we can go back to the way things were before. This sometimes can be a good way to find the middle ground between any of your concerns about moving forward with the process of sleep training. Keep in mind that the process of sleep training is not linear. It is much like a roller coaster where we're going to see progress, we'll see regressions, and then progress and a little bit of a regression again. And I want you to be supportive of each other through that. We are dealing with human behavior. We are not dealing with robots. So as partners in this life together, it is really helpful to go through this process and apply these procedures as a team. You created a beautiful human life together, and you can help teach them a beautiful skill as one unit. And when you are supportive of each other, even if you don't love the idea together, it can be really, really beneficial to your child to lift each other up and celebrate the wins together. I want you to to remember that at the end of the day, when you choose sleep training, you're choosing sleep. Sleep is essential to your child's growth. It's essential to your child's development. It's essential to their brain, to their academics, to their behavior. There are so many good things that good, long, consecutive hours of sleep produce, and that's what the science tells us time and time and time again. And there are very, very, very little effects, short-term of crying and no long-term effects of crying that the science tells us. So with that, I really want any of the concerns of sleep training to be alleviated and for partners to come together as a unit and to prioritize their children and their sleep habits to a lifelong skill. If you have different views on sleep training, on your feeding habits, on your parenting styles, on your behavior styles, really anything, guess what? You're just a normal couple. That's all of us, right? And we're all just trying to figure out the best way to compromise and raise our children to be kind humans. So join the club. I'm really happy that you made it to the end of this video, and I would love for you to let me know if you enjoyed it by giving it a like, and scroll down to the bottom and leave me a comment if you have any questions, because I love to interact with my community here and answer any comments or concerns or questions that you have about this topic specifically or any other topics related to sleep. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so that you're the first to know when I post my latest sleep content. And as always, from my living room to yours, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to see you next time.